All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining today. So, welcome to the June Building to Net Zero Community of Practice. The topic today is how municipalities can drive uptake of home
Pardon?
electrification. Before we get started, just some quick housekeeping. A reminder, as you probably just heard, we are recording the session today. We do share these recordings on our website, so the BNZ Community of Practice website. So if you're ever interested in sharing these conversations with a friend or colleague, they're always available there. We are using also a simultaneous translation today, featuring Wordly. So Kristen just popped that up, and just follow the instructions there if that would be of interest to you. And if you have any trouble, please feel free to message Kristen or I in the chat and we can help you out. Lastly, our presenters today would love to hear from you. If something comes to mind at any time, please feel free to write questions into the chat, or comments as well. We like to see an active chat going during these conversations. We will leave questions until the end, but there'll be time for that then. Feel free then to speak up and have a more active discussion, or we can read out questions that you write into the chat as well, whichever you prefer. Before we get started today, I did want to take a moment to recognize that ICLEI Canada is joining from the traditional territory of the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat peoples. Toronto remains home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples today. This is especially important to recognize at this community of practice because, as you likely know, June is National Indigenous History Month. And as the month draws to a close, it's good to take some time to pause and reflect, not just on history, but our ongoing responsibilities towards reconciliation. In that spirit, we thought we'd share a few Indigenous-led resources for you to explore. Just bear with me a minute, and I'm going to try to enter those into the chat. So, encourage you to take some time out of your week and dig into these or other resources, and take some time to reflect on where reconciliation shows up in your own life and work, and where we could be doing more. So these are some resources that we've been exploring ourselves. But if during your own reflection this month you've come across other resources, lessons, or just insights from conversations that you've heard, please feel very free to share those in the chat. It would be nice to have some reflection ongoing in the conversation as well. All right, now on to our session. So today we are very excited to be joined by two speakers who will share the important work that they're doing, and connect that work to opportunities for local governments as well. So first up today, we have Heather McDermott, Senior Advisor with the Building Decarbonization Alliance. Heather specializes in research, analysis, and communications aimed at advancing electrotech in the residential sector. So today she's going to be sharing Canada's Home Electrification Toolkit, which is the Building Decarbonization Alliance's guide to cleaner, smarter, and more affordable homes. And then next up, we're going to be joined by Chris Taggart, who is a software engineer, leader turned climate activist, sorry, and brings a builder's mindset to decarbonization that he's applied to digital products throughout his career. So he's co-founder of Electrify 613, which is a really exciting peer-to-peer community in Ottawa, where homeowners and experts come together to share real-world guidance on the transition to all-electric homes. So if you're ready to go, Heather, I'll turn things over to you to share your slides.
Yes, so I will just, there we are. There we go. Okay, so as Sue noted, I'm Heather McDermott, and I'm part-time on contract with the Building Decarbonization Alliance. And I am the author of Canada's Home Electrification Toolkit, which I'm going to be talking to you about today. So, I'll start by giving you just a brief overline of who the Building Decarbonization Alliance is. Then I'm going to go very briefly through what is in Canada's electrification toolkit, and then finish off with how that you can use that toolkit in your communities to achieve some of your goals. Okay, so the Building Decarbonization Alliance is all about positioning buildings as the foundation of Canada's electrified economy that involves informing the path forward with independent, partner-grounded evidence and the strategic direction needed to unlock direction, helping to drive economic competitiveness with smart electrification to boost energy productivity, security, and affordability. So there are over 350 partners in the Building Decarbonization Alliance across the building ecosystem, and that includes municipalities um, and across Canada. And it does this work under the umbrella of the Transitional Accelerator, a foundation-funded, nonpartisan, independent group. The goal, as you can see in the title, is really electrifying buildings across Canada so that we can reduce emissions. Um, and this work relates to the residential electrification, and we see that as critical to municipal climate goals and better homes. Um, Promoting electrified homes can help municipalities cut emissions, particularly from their community emissions profiles. And in terms of buildings within the community, municipal community, we see electrification as close as you can get to a silver bullet for cutting emissions from buildings. But municipalities need new tools to advance residential electrification. Can be a tough sell. It has a high upfront cost, and we need some new narratives and we need some new tools. And that's where Canada's Home Electrification Toolkit comes in. The goal here is to raise awareness of the many benefits of going electric, not just from a climate perspective, so that people can see what can align electrification with the things that are important to them. So this is what the toolkit looks like. The goal is to empower residents to make their homes better by choosing electric appliances. And what it's doing is introducing electric options and sort of profiling them, helping people to understand how they are similar and different to the fueled systems that they're used to, but it's not a substitute for product-specific research. We targeting homeowners, but also renters. And I was really excited to be able to include some guidance on things that renters can do as well as homeowners. And it's available for community groups and municipalities that are looking to develop programs to increase residential electrification. And just pushing it back at you, I encourage you in the chat to share with us what equipment in and around your home use fossil fuels today. For some reason, I can't see the chat right now. That's probably an option somewhere.
Had some answers pop up. We've got propane, water heater, dryer, gas fireplace, furnace.
Yeah, those are some of the biggies. But there's actually more than that. And the Canada's, Canada's Home Electrification Toolkit tries to be very comprehensive. So here are some of the equipment that's covered. Many of the ones that were mentioned there are at the beginning, but we're also covering outdoor equipment, things like snow blowers and lawnmowers. We cover EV chargers, home batteries, solar panels, electric thermal storage, and the one that I think is going to be really, really important, but people aren't talking about enough right now, is electrical panels, how to avoid an electrical panel upgrade, and energy management options that help you do that. I'm going to do the scope on the next page one here. So basically what I'm trying to cover there is everything you need to know about equipment. So that covers upfront and operational costs. So these are not necessarily $5.76. It is within a certain range. Equipment lifespans so that you can plan in advance when you have an idea of when your dryer might be coming to the end of the life so that you can plan to replace it before it dies. The electrical needs so that you can plan whether you need extra electrical upgrades when you electrify or not, whether you can do the installation yourself, options for renters, the energy and emissions impacts, uh, benefits and challenges with electrification, as well as other considerations and questions to ask installers. So if we're looking at dryers, for example, um, there are now electric ventless dryers, which I think are really exciting because not only are they electric, they also don't have that hole punched through the building to the outside. You can seal that up, which means you're not leaking humid, hot air in the summertime or dry, cold air into your home in the wintertime. It also, some of the newer dryers, well, there are combined washers and dryers, and there are heat pump water dryers that are super energy efficient. But in some cases, if you are going from a gas dryer, for example, you may have to upgrade some of the electrical. You may need to add an electrical plug to that location, which adds to the cost, which would be one of those other considerations that would be covered in that section. And for the big ticket items, the heat pump, the water heater, the solar panels, we have a list of recommended questions to ask installers because that's rather intimidating. And I thought I would cover a little bit about the electrical panel chapters here because I think this is something we need to talk a whole lot more about, and people need to have some better understanding of what their options are. In Ontario and BC, and hopefully other provinces in the future, what you can do is ask for historical load calculation in order to avoid an electrical panel upgrade. So what happens traditionally is you take all of the electrical equipment in your home and you add up their amperage to get your total electric load. And if you get over 100 amps, then you need to upgrade your electrical panel. You may need to upgrade your electrical service, and that costs thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars if you don't have the service and it's underground. That's very, very expensive. But it turns out that in most homes, we don't run everything all at the same time. And so what you can do is if you can prove by going back at least a year in the electrical records, and you can prove that you are well below the total sum of all of your electrical loads, then they'll let you um, they will say that they will calculate your spare service capacity, what is in effect um, still available. And it can be rather significant. Many homes with a 100 amp panel are only using 20 to 30 amps maximum during the year. So there's lots of spare capacity there if you are able to do those historical load calculations. Some of the other tricks, if this is not an option or if you are getting close to 100 amps, two-in-one appliances take up less space on your electrical panel than separate ones. So a stove and an oven combined will use up less space. A washer and dryer combined uses up less space. You can also opt for efficient appliances that use less power. This is one of the reasons why I recommend heat pump water heaters or electric tank water heaters instead of electric tankless water heaters. An electric tankless water heaters uses a lot of amps because it's heating water very, very fast. Right sizing your EV charger for your needs. You can buy very high power EV chargers, but that doesn't mean that your EV can actually use that high power EV charging. It also, if you're able to plug in at night, you may not need very high EV charging, and that takes high power EV charging, and that can take a lot of space on your panel. And then if those you still need space, then there are special energy management systems where, for example, you can put your car and your dryer on the same circuit. Only the energy management system only allows one of those to run at a time, but chances are you don't need your dryer and your EV charger to run at the same time. So there are actually a lot of different ways to avoid that electrical panel upgrade, and people need to know about these. One of the underlying themes in the toolkit is we're trying to show that an electrified home is better. That when you upgrade to electric equipment, you're getting a better product and a better experience. So, for example, a heat pump provides heat and cooling with amazing efficiency. Two applications, one appliance. Electric water heaters can provide grid services that in some jurisdictions you can get paid for. If you're cooking with induction, there's less indoor air pollution and a much better cooking experience. Electric dryers can be ventless. We've talked about that already. Electric yard equipment, quieter and you require less maintenance. EVs are cheaper to operate and nicer to drive. And all of this can save fuel charges and gas fixed connection fees when you get all the way off of gas. And then just to spice things up a little bit, I thought I'd come back to you. When do you think heat pumps were first invented? Electric heat pumps being really, really cool and a great way to help electrify your home. So again, I can't see the chat, but if you could share a couple numbers, and I won't even know who's
Yeah,
guessed them.
we have guesses right from the 1800s to the 1980s, a full range.
Okay. Well, 1777 was when the idea was first documented. 1834 was when the first patent for a refrigerator, which is a heat pump, was first submitted or accepted. And 1856 was when the first working heat pump was constructed. And then another really cool fact, 1928, a water source heat pump was installed in Geneva City Hall, and it's reportedly still in use, which was quite amazing. And what's even more amazing is that in the 2020s, heat pumps just keep getting better and better. So, Canada's home electrification toolkit is available. You can go to the website, you can follow this QR code and go to the website and find all the information you might want there. It's broken down. You can get the whole thing as a big booklet, or you can break it down and just look at the heat pump for space heating chapter or the water heater chapter. But the Building Decarbonization Alliance is not a public-facing organization. And so what we did in order to help make it easier to spread is we've published it as a white label product. That means you can reach out to us and have us add your logo to the toolkit, your colors, and sort of rebrand it using your municipality or your group's branding. And then you can post it on your website and distribute it to your communities. You can do this for the entire toolkit, or if you feel that's just a little too overwhelming, you can do it for just a single chapter. Up to you. And we do this happily for anybody who asks. And what's more, it helps build your reputation as a trusted partner in the electrification journey, and it just might help you get a little bit further in reaching your climate goals for buildings in your community. This is separate, but may also be of interest to you. We have a similar heat pump fact sheet. It kind of summarizes everything we have in the toolkit, but in 4 simple page pamphlet format with lots of pretty pictures and all that stuff. We make this available through Plumbing and HVAC magazine. And again, businesses and municipalities can customize it with their logo. It's designed to be sort of a leave behind type pamphlet. So if you are promoting a PACE financing program, you can send this home with homeowners where they're inquiring about financing, or installers can leave it behind. It's just a simple set of facts presented an interesting way. And then just to wrap up, the big message that really trying to get out there is we need to upgrade to the best, getting electric next. And below is my contact if you have any specific questions for me. So I will end it there. There'll be questions at the end, and I will let Chris go next.
Thank you very much, Heather. And Chris, you can feel free to get started whenever you're ready.
So I just lost my window here. So give me a second.
Problem.
Sorry. There we go. All right. Everybody can see my screen there? Cool. Yeah, so I'm Chris Taggart, co-founder of Electrify 613, sort of a local grassroots electrification community that I started in 2021 with a friend. You just see here. Primary goal really is about connecting neighbors with other neighbors and experts online and in person. We sort of spun it out originally in 2021 as a kind of a looking around. There was no version of Rewiring America that existed in Canada to kind of bring folks together. And then, so we said, let's start locally and then we can grow up from there. Spun out of investigating my own home electrification project. And so I learned a whole bunch of stuff that I probably felt like I shouldn't have had to learn about building science and heat pumps to get off gas. As of, I think this month, we're a bit over 700 members. And sort of home electrification is unfamiliar territory for most homeowners. Heat pumps are still, unfortunately, pitched as not adequate for Canada's colder winters by many contractors.
Hi, sorry, I don't know if anyone can hear me. I can't hear Chris's audio very well. It's a
Oh,
little.
all right. Let me check on that.
If not, Kelly, I don't know if there's a way for you to turn it up on your end. I think some other folks like myself are able to hear Chris okay.
How about now? Is that all right?
Sounds good.
Okay. I'll try to speak up and enunciate. Maybe it's just that. Yeah. So really started this as a uh, seeing contractors not electrification was always this harder thing, and people will be like, hey, I want to do the right thing, and then they get three quotes. They talk to contractors, and the contractors are like, you don't want to do that. You want to stay on gas. Um, and so we kind of base the organization around like how do we make the right thing, the easy thing to do, and then base all of our activities and things that we do around that. So one of the I guess the primary things this obviously started during the pandemic, so everyone was online and at home and not doing in-person things. So it sort of grew out of an online Slack channel where people can jump in 24/7. Mostly and ask questions and get advice from other people that have electrified, other people that have installed solar, gotten off gas completely, all those things. And then we also have sort of folks in the field and some installers and so you had we have a really good mix of like experts and people who have done it and that's really what we found. Like people need that sort of social push. That's not a salesperson telling them that they should do or something. They just they need the community support from other people that have done it. And sort of out of that, we built out an we call the Electrific platform, which lets any community group run their own electrification community on the same stack that we run Electrify 613. Most recently, we spun out Electrify 705 in Peterborough and the Kawartha Lakes area on the platform. One of the things that and so that lets you manage like posts, contractors, events, FAQs, and then link into the shared Slack channel across, and anyone can do this reach out to me if you're interested or you have folks in your community that want to do that. But we sort of built that out to solve a lot of those problems and make it easier for people to start these sort of local groups. Touching on sort of Heather's point, we ran into the issue of like aggregating all that content and the resources for people who are just looking for more information was kind of not my favorite thing to do personally. And then when we discovered the BDA Electrification Toolkit content, we kind of smushed that into an online version that isn't in a PDF, and it's integrated into this platform. So any site that spins up on the platform gets their own version of that content that can be updated centrally. So as changes are made to different types of equipment or availability of like phase change batteries and PCM material, water heaters and things like those can as make their way into the content. All those sites will also get the updated content. So that's pretty fun, and yeah, really appreciated all the work that went into that on Heather's end. Also offer real case studies, and so people can share their real world case studies on there. And we have a contractor kickoff form, so 4 contractors that we've sort of validated through the community through just people in the community saying like, hey, I went with this person and it was great and they helped me fully electrify. We're like, cool, let's take it. We sort of take notes of those, and then we can add those contractors into this system where homeowners can get a one-click. It basically emails all those contractors at once with the same information. So try to save them, a little bit of time and effort. Finding like contractors that are sort of pro electrification, and then secondarily, like it's a hassle trying to find, get 3 quotes and negotiate things and try to find the contractors and send them all emails. So this tries to condense that down to like put all your stuff in one place, and we'll email all your contractors at once, and they can all respond independently. We also sort of built on the same platform, orchestrate group buys through Electrify 613. So we did our first group buy in the spring. Run a campaign, send people to this site. They connect their gas usage, so we get to look at their existing heating load using their gas usage based on that. In terms of panel sizing, we have them upload their electricity usage to what Heather was touching on. Their last 12 months of hourly usage, and we use that to size their panel basically. And so we'll know from those things plus photos of their ducts, pretty much for the group buy purposes, what type of heat pump they're going to need by and large. And you end up doing it once they're sort of in the group buy. You can do a site visit and maybe there's extra things to look at, but for the most part those are that gets you like 95% of the way into them sized correctly and knowing that they're going to need a service upgrade or not, and generally the case is that they don't. We also run events like local events, heat pump crawls, and tours. So we've done, I think, 3 or 4 of those now. Some in the winter, usually like 50 to 75 people show up and want to see heat pumps in action at people's houses. So we pick a spot in the neighborhood, get some heat pump people with heat pumps, and then do a little walking tour with snacks and hot chocolate or whatever in the summer. So that's been really successful. It honestly surprises me that many people actually want to like spend an afternoon walking around talking about heat pumps. But yeah, they're if you can get the right distribution through counselor newsletters or community associations, those are really great ways to get pickup for those events. Otherwise, it is kind of a slog to try to get the reach, and so that's why, as a community organization trying to do this stuff, really getting the reach out to sort of close the gap on these things and get these people are probably installing heat pumps at this point if they haven't already. We also do heat pumps and pints as a thing, so it's just a casual, there's no like sales thing. It's just like bring your audits, bring your questions about heat pumps, and we just like grab a drink on a patio and talk about that. And then we try to make it fun. So we've got we do stickers and yard signs, which have been super successful in terms of like finding people in the neighborhood, or just connecting people, right? If this person installed a heat pump and they've electrified or they've got enough gas, you stick that on their lawn. You have homeowners are going to wander over. They'll find the Slack group for the QR code, or they'll start asking their neighbor questions about it. What else? So yeah, we kind of look at ourselves as sort of the parachute between all of the municipal programs and all of the marketing programs that try to tell land these policy objectives of getting off gas, reducing emissions, home electrification. Uh, the biggest gap we saw was like sort of the HVAC contractor pieces. Everyone's on board, and then they go get 3 quotes, and then it's like, oh, you don't want to do that, or your panel, you have to do a panel upgrade because the typically the HVAC contractor isn't looking at sizing the panel, and it's sales folks that show up, and so the linchpin there does tend to be the contractor side. So that's why we've sort of tried to help people earlier in the process, and then land them with contractors that are gonna make their electrification experience successful and really get hit those policy objectives. Sort of in terms of municipalities, how can municipalities support grassroots home electrification groups? I would say there's probably a few things. Trust is that residents trust their neighbors, and this can support municipal objectives. And so and sort of opinions. And so the community groups, maybe I've discovered, can be better positioned to collect data on contractor experiences and recommend contractors. So we sort of aggregate those things fuzzily outside of, for instance, like the City of Ottawa programs, and where I think some municipalities typically can't say like, don't use this contractor or use this contractor. We as sort of a group of just fuzzy recommendations through people that have successfully electrified and had those experiences, we can do that without having like a whole bunch of really strict weird I don't know, it's like we can have that bias because it's the data that's collected through the group, and we can share that with homeowners who are trying to electrify their own homes. And the other thing is like availability. A lot of cases, people are thinking about this stuff at the end of their day. Their kids are in bed. They're like, finally, the last thing I want to think about during my workday is like, got to go figure out a gas furnace replacement. And so with the Slack channel, we're pretty much available, anytime I'm online, which is most of the time, or somebody's online. So somebody in the group is typically around to answer questions. If it's like 9:30 at night, 10 o'clock at night, I think that's probably harder for a lot of sort of more formal programs to land. So yeah, we kind of fill that gap and connect folks with with existing municipal programs as well. So one of the things is show up and amplify. So low cost, no cost things. Feature if you have these communities in your area. Feature them in newsletters, social channels. Send people to their events. Like your own people. So if you have someone that's running a specific program, like try to connect with them and have your folks show up at the event and answer questions and promote your own programs, which folks in Ottawa have been great at doing. Convene and connect, offer room space, connecting with experts, right? Share those goals so that they can be aligned with these community groups and they can help you achieve those goals. And then also sort of share what you have, whether that's here are focused neighborhoods or really like staff expertise around certain pieces. And I think a lot of we've you'll just like groups will appreciate the extra data that they have to target your electrification programs and really make those events and those things successful. If possible, like fun small stuff. All of our stickers and lawn signs and swag and things that we've done have all been sort of out of pocket for our group. But if there's a way to co-brand some sort of generic co-branded signs, stickers, things that you can throw your logo on to say like, hey, we funded this thing, this is part of a community electrification, but then also help those organizations out, that goes a long way. And then yeah, sponsor events at venues, community tours. If you have buildings that have heat pumps, those are really great, like community buildings or alternate heating systems. Those are great to feature on tours and link in with residential buildings. Shout out to OCH who did one on one of our heat pump tours, which is really cool to see not your typical single family heat pump install. Make it durable, which I think is maybe the hardest, but simultaneously the most impactful piece is write resident-led community electrification outreach into your decarbonization strategy, and then really like smooth and trying to find ways to streamline the sort of decarbonization using actual sort of policy to make electrifying your home like the easy path and not like harder than it is. Like it should be harder to replace a gas furnace with another gas furnace, or to build a new home with a gas furnace than it is to install a heat pump. And right now we're not quite at the point where like the default is just, oh, yeah, of course you're getting a heat pump. It's like, oh, you want a heat pump instead of the gas furnace. So like, how do we use policy to get there? And be the trustworthy for all. So, folks trust cities and municipalities and those types of groups. So like share the, doing those sort of handoffs in a trusted way is helpful as well. If you want one of these in your city, if you have champions, local community champions, sort of help them find each other, help them connect. Like I said, sort of sharing social reach in ways that are possible. That's always beneficial to try to, it's hard to get attention for some of our events, like our heat pump tours. So having sharing some of that social and attention is helpful. And then be the parachute, back them on incentives, comms, and marketing as the groups grow. And like I said, we can help. We have some platforms to this. If you have folks near you or in your areas that might be interested in sort of starting a grassroots electrification community, happy to connect with them and get them stood up with all the goodies. And that's it for me.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks to both of you. We'll get started with some questions. At the first question that's in the chat, and please, everyone, if you have questions, add them in. You can also raise your hand and unmute. The first one up is just how big of an organization is Electrify 613? And Chris, I was also just wondering a little bit more about how you got started with all this. It's such an impressive project as a grassroots initiative. Oh, and you're muted, Chris.
Sorry, and I'm muted. How big are we in terms of like the organization? I would say that there's myself and another co-founder, and then we have a bunch of sort of dedicated volunteers that is sort of join the community and then help out at events and tabling and that sort of thing, which has been really cool to see. And so that helps us sort of scale the impact of that, and obviously not have myself and my co-founder there, the group, to have to go to literally everything. Or lets us, do more outreach, because that's been the hardest thing to kind of grow. And then in terms of, I guess, how I got into it, so my background is software engineering, and sort of wanted to sort of incorporate climate into that at some point. And this was a way for me to do that and have some local impact and meet folks in the climate space. And build software that isn't just sort of e-commerce related things. It's like, how do we take software and put that to use for climate purposes?
Great. And a couple of more questions popping up. So you're located in Ottawa, but do you have or know of similar services in the GTA? Someone is asking, coming from Richmond Hill. And another question too, sort of hit you with two. Have you had any engagement with the Urban Land Institute of Toronto? They often look for local tours for real estate sector, and one-on-one heat pumps would be useful.
Let's see, near Toronto. I mean, I don't know of a group there's a few groups in Toronto that kind of do adjacent things that I'm totally blanking on right now. There are a bunch. There's no one, I don't know that anyone that's doing it sort of, I guess, like you have like the Heather knows. Heather must know the pocket change. What was the group that spun out of that? Maybe Heather doesn't know. But yeah, so there's a few in there. I mean, I can dig them up. And we know a few installers. Yeah, sorry, the network.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Yes, exactly. And in terms of, I have not connected with Urban Land Institute of Toronto. But I'm sure through the network and the Toronto Home Energy Network, they might also be able to link into that, and they would probably be a more local resource.
And Heather, I had a particular question for you, if you don't mind. I noticed that you mentioned support for renters. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about what that involves and just kind of the complexity of supporting renters with this, coming from a renter perspective myself.
So as a renter, you don't have control over things like your space and your water heating, but there are things that you do have control over. So things like ventless dryers, some of them can plug into a regular outlet. So it's something that a renter could invest in and take with them. Um, the single burner induction cookers. So this is actually what I'm going to do in my next home is I'm going to ditch the whole stove and I'm going to buy myself 3 or 4 just small single burner induction cooktops, and I can put them away in a drawer when I'm not using them. I just take out however many I need, I plug them in, and that's what I do my cooking on. Because induction is just way better than anything else. And the idea of freeing up all that counter space is really exciting. And again, that's something that you can take with you. And especially if gas is the default cooking in your home, that can provide some very significant indoor air quality benefits, as well as better cooking experience. Um, so those are sort of some of the types of options that are available to homeowners. We also provide some links to resources to advocate for things like EV charging in a rental space, because some groups have done some really good work on that. So it's not everything, but there are definitely things that you do have some control over.
Great, thank you. And we have one question, a really good question in the chat from Trudy. And this is a question to both presenters, but also any else in the audience who'd like to chime in as well. So our local utility is both gas and electric provider. I'm seeing a lot of messaging from them that we are a net importer of electricity and we don't have the capacity to transition fully to electric yet. And natural gas is an important component of that energy supply. Obviously, though, there's emissions challenges there. How are people reconciling the greater energy supply limitations with the push for electrification?
Now, that's a complicated one. That is a large picture type question that I don't think individual homeowners should be concerning themselves with at all. If a homeowner is interested in fully electrifying, this should not be a concern at this time because we're nowhere near electrification being a major issue for capacity. Um, and I would take issue with being a net importer of electricity. Um, in that, at least on a national scale, we are generating our own electricity. We are often importing fossil fuels. Um, so not universally different for Alberta, BC, for example, but in Ontario, a lot of our natural gas is coming from the States. So we are importing those fuels, and the less we import, the more self-sufficient and resilient we are. Um, Not sure if that answers your question, Trudy, because this is a sort of a larger system concern, but I feel like we've got a long way to go before this becomes an issue.
I would just add that, like, yeah, talking to our local utility here, they're kind of like they're planning for it, and to Heather's point, like it's nowhere near being close to an issue yet, and they're moving in that direction. So like, I focus on like there are people who are focused on that problem, and they're smart people, and they're going to figure it out, and we're going to focus on getting people electrified and off of gas, and then at some point those will meet in the middle, and right. Um, yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it.
Robert, you had your hand raised. Feel free to unmute.
Oh, I know this context very well. I mean, I think the answer to this question is that, we don't have an option not to invest in our energy system, be it, in Kelowna's case, they're looking to import LNG for crying out loud, to meet peak gas demand. So if you're going to put your money into the energy system, you might as well put it into electricity as opposed to into the gas system. So we're simply in a period where energy demand is not plateauing as it has historically, and we have a national energy strategy to double grid capacity. And so, what we're talking about is transitioning buildings and transportation over time. It's not like we're putting the switch on, and all of a sudden everybody is electrifying. This needs to happen, and it provides a pathway to be able to get to these goals. So we've never held back investments, and certainly we're not holding back AI right now because of lack of electricity. So it's not a great argument for heat pumps and other end uses.
Thank you, Robert, very much. And we have a question here specifically for Heather. Where can you get a historical load calculation, and what is the process for proving you don't need to upgrade an electrical panel? Is this just in Ontario or BC? And then a follow-up question to that, is this just for homes, or can owners of rental apartments do the same?
So the first step is to get your historical energy use. So that's just a matter of contacting your electrical utility and asking them for a year's worth of data. And the person who asks for that is the person who has the account with the electrical utility. So if it is a rental unit, it depends on who's paying the electrical utility who can ask for this. So once you have that report, you can look yourself to see what was the maximum demand, what was the hour of the past year. That will give you an idea of what is possible. And then it's a matter of talking to an electrician to get sort of the paperwork signed and approved so that you can get permission to put, for example, 120 amps on a 100 amp panel. I don't know how much that costs. It's definitely far, far less than upgrading to a 200 amp panel. And right now, my understanding is that this is only allowed in the electrical code in Ontario and BC. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you. And another question here for Heather, but feel free both to chime in. Just speaking about heat pumps, they're responding to something that Heather said, that people unfortunately still think that heat pumps don't work in cold climates. They recently moved to Winnipeg and noted that air source heat pumps aren't as efficient in the cold Manitoba winters, so backup sources are needed. Wondering if they're missing something here.
Okay, so first of all, in Manitoba, there are some really amazing incentives available right now for ground source heat pumps. And ground source heat pumps are very efficient when it gets cold because the ground doesn't change the same way that the outdoor temperature does. So that would be a really good option for a place like Manitoba. They're also very correct that right now, the electricity rates compared to the natural gas rates in Manitoba, natural gas is much lower cost than electricity, and that makes the operational economics of a heat pump very challenging in Manitoba. But getting back to the air source heat pumps in Manitoba, you absolutely can go with an air source heat pump. You will likely need some sort of backup. It doesn't have to be gas. It can be gas, but you can have electric resistance backup. It is less efficient, but with either option, your heat pump is still likely generating at least half of your heating load if you're using a cold climate heat pump. So it's absolutely better than pure gas. And heat pumps are getting better. So It just, when I installed my heat pump in 2020, the best heat pumps performed decently well down to -20, and now there are heat pumps that are advertising that they work down to -30. Still not terribly efficient at -30, but they can work down to -30, and that's just a difference in 6 years. So they're getting better.
And like I guess like in an Ottawa winter, which is not a Winnipeg winter, but some overlap, is like if you go back and look at the data, it's typically like I don't know 6 actual hours where it's at least in Ottawa was where it's below -30 uh, in the last 20 years of like discounting like it feels like with like the wind chill and things, it's actually not in Ottawa hasn't been that cold for a prolonged period of time, kind of since they've recorded that data. Um, and so like at least here, it's like worst case scenario, your electric resistance backup heat, which most of our installs include a 5 kilowatt or 8 kilowatt resistance heat kit in the heat pump and the air handler. Yeah, a lot of people over the last couple of years have been able to ride out their winter without using your backup heat at all. If you're using like a high end cold climate heat pump, and yeah, you can also just turn the breaker off and say I want to ride this thing out and see how low we can go. But other than that, yeah, it'll just kick in and keep you warm and toasty. And we just did our first winter with our cold climate heat pump this year. We actually installed it on one of the coldest days of the year, I think. And yeah, no complaints. It's been warm and toasty and definitely more comfortable.
Great. Thank you both. I had a question for both of you as well, just in terms of messaging. I know a lot of municipal staff are looking to get messages out to residents. So just wondering in terms of getting accurate and trusted information is a big piece of both of your initiatives. If you have any tips on maybe one type of approach or message to avoid that you found really ineffective and one that you found really strong that resonates with residents.
Yeah, I think the big one to avoid is any framing that suggests that you're taking away choice. So people like to be able to choose. Um, and I think what Chris is doing is absolutely awesome. What he's leveraging is people trust information that comes from friends, neighbors, colleagues, and that's what we need to do more of. We need to leverage that. Um, it's those people talking about things that gets us interested and curious, and it's when we empower people who've done this, who've done the research, who understand what's going on, when we empower them to talk to more people, that's when their friends and their neighbors who have maybe some misinformation or other ideas are hearing it from people that they trust, that's when they're going to start maybe questioning what they know and investigating further. It's not so much when authorities are telling people. We really have to leverage the friends and neighbors and those ambassadors. On to you, Chris.
I'd say yeah, that was one of my points, which is great. The other I'd say like is just over promising. So like it's as sort of the landscape changes with gas prices and electricity prices, over promising, right? So for a while you could say that heat pumps, you're always going to save money on heat pumps, which is a lot of the messaging that people got in the last 5 years. Now it's kind of like depending on where you live, I mean, depending where if you're coming from gas, then like it's going to be maybe you save a little bit, you might pay a little bit more, kind of nets out. But if you're coming from oil or propane, like at least in Ontario, you're definitely going to save money. So yeah, it's not over promising and sort of being upfront about, yeah, this might cost you a little bit more, but there are other benefits to not just cost. We try not to lead on cost. I know a lot of people go into it as like, oh, what's the cheapest operational thing? And it's like, you pay for other things in your life that aren't just based on pure cost, because you're like, I like this is better, this is, so not over promising, and if there are ways to lead on comfort, is kind of where we like to go.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if there's no
I
other
wanted
question, yeah,
I
go
wanted to
ahead.
add one last thing. I noticed that Clean Energy Canada put out this new program today called the Heat Pump Summer Challenge. And what they're doing is encouraging and supporting people in going out, getting curious about heat pumps, starting conversations, and maybe hosting, they're calling it a hangout, hosting an event where they share information about heat pumps. So that is maybe another way to help empower people to get involved and talk about heat pumps. I'll put a
Thanks
link in
very
the
much.
chat.
Great. All right. Well, I think we're just about at time. So unless you guys have any closing thoughts, we'll probably wrap things up there. Thank you both so much. That was really great presentations from both of you, and folks were really engaged in the topic. So obviously resonated with everyone. So thank you very much. Any thoughts from you guys? I don't want to cut you off too quick. Oh, good. Okay. All right, perfect. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining today. Next month, we'll be back again, and we're going to be talking about kind of the intersection with sustainable buildings and health and equity. So that should be a really great session as well. Thank you very much, and I hope you all enjoy your day. Take care.